Hey everyone, I'm back. So last night I was out boot blacking and there were 3 major issues that I saw, and they're all 3 really fixable. But every time I saw these problems, the person with the boot would come up and tell me, this boot is unsalvageable. I don't think you can fix it. Take a look at that. And I'd look down, I'd see their shoe and say, I can fix it in about 15 minutes. And sometimes they'd look at me like I was crazy and go, okay, we'll see. Comes down to cleaning, conditioning, and the wear and tear of leather dies. So today I'm going to show you how to fix these 3 things really quickly. It doesn't take all that long. So right now we have my nice oil tan shoe, and because we just cleaned it yesterday, I'm not going to go into as much detail as I normally would, so we're just going to do a really quick clean. I did get some salt and some gunk on it last night at the bar, so we're just going to clean that up in the process. So I'm just going to spray my shoe a little. And because this shoe is an oil can that was just cleaned, I'm going to use a glycerin soap. Unscented, undyed, no additional things in it. I don't want anything else in here because if I add any more conditioning agents to my shoe, it's going to be very unhappy. Now, if I had a really dry shoe like what we're talking about, what I did last night with those is I used a Castile soap. This soap makes sure that we get some of those oils back into our shoe as we're cleaning. So this Castile is an oil-based soap. Glycerin is not. So one of the big differences with these soaps, this gives you a really good lather. So we can use something like a shaving brush to really get a good lather going. This is not going to give us a nice lather. I can just sit here and scrape all day. This is always going to look about the same. This is as much as I'm going to get. I'm really never going to get any more than that. So when I spray on my brush, notice I did it in a downward position. So part of what holds our horsehair bristles in is glue. So I'm trying to keep the water from settling so we don't set our brushes to dry with it like that, because that's going to loosen the glue. Always set it facing down. Easy circular motions. Think of it kind of like washing your own skin. You want to make sure when you're washing yourself you get into all your pores. Well, it's really not all that different here. We want to make sure we get into all of our nooks and crannies. If you're worried about how heavy-handed you are, practice on your skin. If it's scratchy, then you're a little too hard. It might tickle a little bit, that's okay. That's how you know you're being gentle. If you know you're heavy-handed, think of it as how you might brush, how you would use it on a child or elderly parent skin, something that's really sensitive. So our circular motions, getting into all the nooks and crannies. Nice, gentle. Okay. Now, a lot of people will be really concerned about how much water gets into your shoe. That really doesn't apply to this level of water. That if you're going to waterlog a shoe, it's because it's been drenched for an extended period, like running leather through the washing machine. Not this. This, your leather is going to dry. It might take longer to dry, but it's going to dry. Now we have a microfiber cloth or a really soft towel, something old that you don't mind getting stained and yucky. Now as we go through, just like before, we're going to go ahead and use that circular motion just to make sure we're getting all the nooks and crannies. Now earlier I showed you my different brushes. This was something that I picked up at the leather store. This was something that I picked up for the cheapest amount possible on Amazon. You know, something that takes like a month to deliver. It's so cheap. They both do a really great job. You'll notice that the hair distribution is a little bit different on them. This is more concentrated in a circle, and these kind of fan out a little bit more. It really doesn't make a big difference. Just like with my little brushes here. This one fans out. This one was a really expensive shaving brush, and this is actually designed for leather. So it's going to be really concentrated to give you little itty bitty circles. This is my toothbrush. We don't use it on leather. I can use it on suede, not on leather. This is here for hardware when I'm trying to get in. Now, I just gave these a really good clean yesterday, so I'm not going to take my laces out. I'm not going to get into the nooks and cranny of my hardware today. I don't have anything in the ridges in here or down here right now, but if I did, this is what my leather toothbrush is here for. And if I had some gunk in there that I had a hard time getting out and the toothbrush is just not getting it, I could use some dental floss on my hardware, and that would be just fine. So you don't have to use a circular motion when you're taking all the soap off. I like to, you don't have to, but as you can see right now, I'm just going through with this and just kind of rubbing, making sure that we've got all this soap. If it feels tacky, you still have soap. And right now, I'm actually just going to concentrate on the toe of the shoe so that we can get to the other two parts of what I saw last night. So already my shoe is looking 100 times better. Now, because of how much water is in here, my leather is darkened. So if I had a brown leather, it would be really dark right now. It's going to lighten up some, but just know with brown leathers, every time you really get a good amount of water in them or conditioner, you might walk away with a slightly darker shoe than when you started. That's just one of the issues with brown leather, so you just have to know that in advance. So my shoe that started off with little bits of discoloration up in the toe from where I stubbed my foot a couple times last night, or some of the salt from where I slid in the snow a couple times on the way to my car last night. That's all nice and gone. It's a much prettier. It'll lighten up a little bit as it's drying, and we'll be able to see some of the discoloration better much later today. But this shoe does have some dye discoloration. So now that we're gonna let that dry for just a second, let's talk about some of our conditioners. So I have some different kinds of conditioners for different kinds of situations. Now, if you have allergies, you can always just use an oil. This is fractionated coconut oil. That means it's shelf stable. So when you have to put it in the refrigerator, the food grade kind, that one's going to degrade, and it will degrade on your leather, and that's not really what we're looking for. So the shelf stable one that you would use on your skin, that's the one that you want. So this is a really easy one. So out of all the oils, this is a lighter oil as opposed to, say, a vegetable oil. That's more of a medium heaviness of oil. A really heavy oil is going to be olive oil. So how you know if it's light or heavy, it's the more oil in your oil, which is the most confusing way that anybody could find something. So if you put a little bit on your skin, and your skin is normally hydrated, if it takes a really long time to soak in, that's because it's a much heavier oil. But I like the coconut oil. It's a thinner oil. I know I'm heavy-handed with oil, so a lighter oil like that is going to be a little bit better. That offers some decent weather protection. It's also going to be something that you're probably going to have to put on just a little bit more. A lot of our stuff is going to have a lot of problems for people with sensitive skin or allergies sometimes. So going with an oil like that is going to be really helpful. Now, we have our beeswax conditioners. So a beeswax conditioner is going to be like this. I went to Walmart to see what they had. This is what I found that I would use. This is the only thing at my Walmart that I found that I would use. So you can't necessarily look at the back and see what's in it. That's the problem with leather conditioners, because everybody wants their trade secret conditioner. So you do a little research and you see what you can find. You open it up. I don't recommend doing this because it's probably not always a good thing to do for your hands. But you can always kind of tell if it's tacky or if it smells really just chemically. Those are probably things that we don't want to use. If you wouldn't use it on your skin, you probably don't want to use it on your boot. Sort of. Because some of the stuff not really great for skin, okay for your boot. So there's some separation there, but for the most part the rule is you wouldn't use it on you, you don't use it on your leather. But you smell it, it smells like beeswax. It looks like a lot of the other conditioners that I'm going to show you. Some of the things I saw at Walmart had petroleum jelly. We don't want to use that. We're moving away from that for our skin, so we definitely want to move away from that for our boots. So there's our nice beeswax. Hubbard's is going to be pine tar and beeswax. So this was made for a really rainy, wet climate. And while some things don't give you a lot of information, Hubbard's is actually going to tell you quite a bit about it around the bottle. So always take a look, because a lot of times you'll get some really good information. Hubbard's has your directions here, so if you don't really know what you're doing, you don't feel comfortable yet, this one will tell you exactly what to do. It'll tell you what it's recommended for. So like footwear. Now all of your conditioners are going to tell you it's going to darken your leather, because it's probably going to darken your leather, especially, let's see if I can open this, here we go. So as you can tell, the pine tar makes it really dark. So when it's telling you it's going to darken your leather, it's not kidding. So you don't necessarily want to use this on colored leather, especially if it's a light color. This will tell you, so it gives you your directions, and it also will tell you a little bit of what's in it. More importantly, it tells you what's not in it. So it tells you there's no animal fats or tallow. So that means that this is going to be able to last much longer on this shelf. So I've had some that's been sitting in my kit for a couple of years, and it's still just as good. Now I always check it first, just to make sure, but for the most part I can rely on this. It's also going to tell you what kind of leathers I can use it on and what it's going to do. So it's going to soften, waterproof, preserve. So wet climates, when it's really rainy, when it's really snowy, when the snow is melting, this is going to be a really good one to have. Now we have Picard's. And if you can tell from the duck and the rain, this one's going to be really great for rainy, wet, snowy, just the same thing we had before. So this is a neutral. So when I say it's a neutral, it's because it doesn't have any dyes in it. Not because it's not colored, because this one is beeswax. It's going to have that yellowish tint to it. So again, you want to know that, because you could get something that's a lighter yellowy color. This is much more cream than this one. So this is going to be a higher concentration of beeswax. Just by looking at the color, you're going to know that. So our beeswax ones, great for the rain, great for the snow, great for if you know you're gonna be somewhere where there's gonna be icky, sticky things, this will also help repel so that later on when you clean it comes off a little better. So with this one, it comes in colors, it holds dye really well. So sometimes if I made something for someone and I want them to have a colored conditioner for it, I'll use Picard's as my base conditioner because it holds a dye really nicely. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in just a second. Picard's for your rain. Now, we have Oberknopf's. Oberknopf's is one of my favorites to use when something is really dry. So last night, Oberknopf's and Hubert's were my go-to because they were heavy conditioners. So like we talked about earlier, the more oil is in your conditioner, the heavier it is. So whereas Picard's is more beeswax than oil, it's going to be a lighter conditioner. Just like this, it's going to be a lighter conditioner. Your heavier ones will often tell you it's heavy. On here in the, right here over here in the directions, it's going to tell you it's a heavy conditioner. And it's going to say footwear. That's one of your key indicators to know. Heavy conditioner, we're not going to use it on really soft leathers. Soft leather is going to be like a lambskin. So think like your driving gloves. It's probably not going to be that. This one will also give you a lot of information, but I've had it so long that a lot of the information is gone on mine. But if you read through it, it'll tell you what it's good for. It'll tell you that it's beeswax. This is a lighter color beeswax, so if you have a colored leather item, especially something that's painted, so let me show you real quick. This is hand painted. I'm going to use something like this in a really small quantity, and I'm going to not do it very often, but I don't want to change the colors, so this is going to be my go-to. Now, last night with some of them, I had some boots that hadn't been washed or conditioned in 2, 3, 4 years. It had been a while. So what I did was, just to make sure we were getting everything, I'd condition one boot and moisturize and kind of rub it in, but let it sit there. Do the other boot, come back and rub it in, and then use a towel to kind of gently maneuver it into the boot. Make sure I got it into all those little nooks and crannies in our boot. And then I came back, did the other one, came back and used the very smallest amount of Hubert's on top. And when I mean smallest amount, that's it. A little bit goes a really long way. So right now, let's put some on our boot. Because I conditioned this last night, I'm not gonna worry too much, because even though we've washed it, it's still got a good base layer of conditioner inside. And if you'll notice, I rubbed it against my hands because the more surface area means the better even spread I can get on this. And I'm just going to massage it into the shoe. So think of it like you're giving a massage, a nice back massage or a neck rub. You're just getting it in, especially in these creases. Again, you can put your hand in here and get into it. That's a really easy way. You can stuff it with towels. Sometimes I'll put a pool noodle in when I plan on working on something for a long time or doing some reshaping. If it's got some problems going on with it, you could use newspaper. You could always get a shoehorn, but that costs more money. Alright, so I've got my conditioner in. I've made sure it's even. No one spot is any shinier than another. It all feels about the same. gonna let that dry while we talk about the last problem. So the last problem is, as you can tell from here, a lot of times as we're cleaning, we're removing some of the dye. That's just a natural part of leather. Your dye is not going to last the entire life of the boot. You're going to have to re-dye at some point. So when everybody was telling me, oh my god, these boots, they have to go, maybe you can make them last another month. It was because the dye had worn off, and that happens because they're shoes. They're gonna scrape up against things. So like in a car accident, when you have that transfer of paint on another car, that can happen to your boots too. So as you scrape and you rub, some of that dye is just going to wear, and you're going to get from that protective coating that comes on all boots, that's gonna wipe away over time. The next thing that's on your boot is the dye. That's gonna wipe away over time. So as you strip it just based on normal wear and tear, you're gonna get the lighter, whiter, looks like it's really a big problem. It's really not. It's just because you're missing the dye. So you can get like a Picard's that's already pre-colored. This one is brown. Or you can buy your own dye. Kiwi makes one that I really like because it comes with the little dauber on top, so you can use it to just gently press and it won't put too much dye out there. Now again, circular motions are your friend. And I'm only going to do the toe here so you can see. So now it's really bright and shiny. That's how we know it's wet. Because I don't want it to stay shiny, I'm actually going to use my hands now. All that conditioner that I put on earlier, a lot of this dye is just gonna rub right off. So I'm not real worried about it right now. Last night, one of the things that I did with some of the more extreme cases, and because we were at a bar, I would just go ahead, get this, turn this around, dab it on my hand, mix the color in my hand, and then rub it onto the shoe itself. And then I'd let it dry for a second while I did the other shoe, and then I came back and gently wiped away and dried off the shoe. So any transfer is happening on my cloth because we're in a crowded bar. We don't want the transfer to be on your pants, on somebody else's pants, on the furniture in the building. But now my shoe is good, it's clean, it's black, and your shoe will look good as new. So again, those three things can really make a difference in how your shoe looks and how it feels. And it's just covering your normal wear and tear. So you want to make sure you're cleaning it every time it's dirty. You're going to make sure you condition it regularly, which kind of depends on your shoe. We'll have to talk about that another time. General rule of thumb, if you wear it a lot every day, you're going to spot clean it and give it a good clean monthly. If you're really getting it dirty, maybe you're a farmer or a factory worker, weekly at least, with spot cleans in between. And then as needed, you're just going to re-add dye back into your shoe. A lot of times when the weather changes, I'll use a 50-50 water and alcohol to kind of remove some of these conditioners. I'll use my glycerin soap to help pull out the conditioner from the shoe, And then I'll change the conditioner that we're using. So when I'm going to a more dry climate, then I might use my Aussies or an Obernoff. When it's raining, I'll go back to my Huberts, kind of depending on what's going on, what I'm expecting with the weather, and where I'm going to be. But these things will expand the life of your shoe. Your leather shoe can last forever. You just have to take really good care of it. That's all you have to do, guys. Thanks so much.